Remember the Genesis G80 Sport? The sportier and more powerful version of the previous generation G80 that looked like $1 million inside and out. With the release of the all-new G80, the sport version is making its comeback. After being mentioned by the Genesis executive of the possibility a few months earlier, examples of the sportier G80 are being spotted in the streets of Korea as they are being tested. Obvious is its iconic slotted 5-spoke wheels that instantaneously transforms the humble sedan into a racy sport sedan. As you recall, these new sport wheels were also seen on the GV70 Sport Pack that was recently released. Also, although heavily camouflaged, key details are quite visible, such as the deeper front air dam that resembles that of the latest G70 facelift. The rear treatment is pretty much the same story, with the more pronounced bumper with different rear reflector placement and the license plate housing. It's surprising, however, that the exhaust outlets remain unchanged. The standard chrome treatment on the grille, as well as throughout the car, seems unchanged either in standard silver, unlike the previous G80 Sport that used bronze plating to give more sporting appeal. For the interior, it's hard to tell what's new since they've done a pretty good job in completely covering the inside, but you can bet there is going to be some significant changes. Drawing from the first G80 Sport, we can expect things like sportier seats, contrast stitching, and revised steering wheels. It's highly likely that the steering wheel and overall presentation of the sporty interior will resemble that of the GV70 Sport Pack's 3-spoke design and the predominantly black color scheme with brightly colored leather. We suspect that Genesis is trying to keep the sport theme consistent throughout the range. All in all, the revisions do not seem as dramatic as we have seen on the first G80 that we've seen, and fell in love with, a few years back. Maybe it's really not necessary, as the standard G80 already looks amazingly sporty and sensuous. However, what may be dramatic is what it's packing underneath the hood. First released in 2017, the first G80 Sport was a mid-cycle refresh for the first G80, the car that first started as Hyundai Genesis sedan, which was first released in 2014. The mid-size luxury sedan was then transferred to the newly formed Genesis division with the model designation of G80 in 2016. Positioned below the omnipotent G80 5.0-liter naturally aspirated V8, which produced 420 horsepower and 380 pounds-to-foot of torque, G80 Sport was supposed to be a mid-tier trim with a 365 horsepower 3.3-liter engine that was newly designed for the all-new at the time Genesis G70 and Kia Stinger sports sedans. The all-new second-generation G80 Sport will sport an engine that will produce as much power as the previous V8 model at 420 to 430 horsepower by utilizing a retuned version of the 3.5-liter turbocharged V6 engine that pumps out, in a standard tune, 375 horsepower and 391 pounds-to-foot of torque. FYI, this new up-powered 430 horsepower engine is to spawn other sport models within Genesis range like the new GV70 Sport or maybe even the G70 Sport. 430 horsepower on the lighter GV70 or G70 would definitely make these already potent cars even more fantastic to drive and would spell big trouble for their German rivals like X3 M40i or M340i. For application in the G80, the boost in the power should improve the 0 to 60 miles per hour acceleration time of the standard V6 model's 5.1 seconds to a mid-4-second range, which should blow away the German rivals' similarly priced sedans such as the 335 horsepower 540i. However, in this power-crazed day and age, 430 horsepower is not really enough to compete against even the light-end cars such as the turbocharged V8-powered M550i, which pumps out well over 500 horsepower with a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of just 3.6 seconds. So, can we expect a more powerful version of G80 that can compete with the best of the best? Turbocharging the existing 5.0-liter V8 would accomplish the task quite easily. However, Genesis is keeping quiet about the possibility of the high-performance V8 turbocharged engine, or the creation of a high-performance sub-brand such as AMG or M at this moment. However, what Genesis is raving about is the future of Genesis in the eco-friendly electric form that may be the answer to the AMG and M cars. To be released in 2021 is Genesis' first entry into the electric vehicle segment, EG80. We are not completely certain of the EG80's performance prowess, only the rudimentary information is currently available, like the maximum range that's expected to be amazing 310 miles or 500 kilometers, which is within the Tesla realm. However, drawing from another Genesis electric car that will make an introduction around the same time as EG80, the JW, which is one of the trios of dedicated electric SUVs that the Hyundai Group will introduce in 2021 along with Ioniq 5 and Kia CV, the EGMP dedicated EV platform car is to have an acceleration time similar to that of Porsche's full electric vehicle, Taycan, at 2.8 seconds. Although not a dedicated EV like the JW, if each G80 is utilizing similar mechanicals, as we can safely assume, we would expect something amazing, one that can indeed compete with the German V8 turbo cars in terms of the sheer acceleration. Add to that the all-wheel drive with limited slip differential and Sport Plus driving mode, you would have a making of a truly incredible driving machine. Furthermore, being able to enjoy over 300 miles of the full electric range, and sumptuous and luxurious interior that you can't get from Tesla would be something that dreams are made of. The gasoline-powered, 430 horsepower G80 Sport was originally slotted for December 2020 production, but it would have to take a back seat to the GV70 as it's taking that slot after a couple of months of delay due to the pandemic. Now it's expected in the early to mid 2021 with the price of 90 million Korean won, which is about $80,000. That's approximately $15,000 more than the standard V6 model. Thank you for watching AutoVision. Your likes and subscriptions will very much be appreciated. We make it our policy to respond to all of your comments, suggestions, and questions, so don't hesitate to leave us your thoughts. See you next time, when we bring you the latest Korean auto news.